Welcome back to the Pack Fresh podcast, where we talk about all things Pokemon TCG and give you a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be a seller in this crazy hobby. And today, we have a very special guest. We got Shalom from BoomerTCG with us. We have a little talk.
Shalom, you got such a crazy origin story, from selling vintage boxes to real estate. What was the moment you realized Pokemon wasn't just nostalgia, but an opportunity?
Oh man, sometime around 2020, right around COVID, I had started to sell some of my Pokemon stuff to make up funds because COVID was getting active. We'd had some family in the hospitals and I needed to help pitch in to take care of them. Pokemon had suddenly exploded out of nowhere. I was like, hey, I've got some old stuff I can sell. I can help take care of these financial hardships for the family. So that's how it got started.
Have you always been part of Pokemon? Did you drop out of it and come back? That's kind of how a lot of people talk about it, but were you always present with Pokemon throughout your whole life?
Yeah, it was back and forth. I played the games mainly. I'd collect here and there. I didn't collect Blastoses nearly as much as I do right now, but I'd basically collected sealed product from 2011 all the way through 2015. So I'd spent a good 4 years buying a bunch of stuff up in my college years. It was pretty bad. I'd spent so much of my student tuition. I'd gone to school, I'd had scholarships, but I used a lot of money buying boxes. And I got so much crap from my family. It was really bad because I was just making terrible financial decisions when I was younger.
Yeah, as most of us do. When you were growing up, it wasn't the most extravagant. Tell us a little bit about how that shaped your hustle today, not just in Pokemon, but in life as well.
So both my parents are refugee immigrants from Thailand and Laos. During the Vietnam War, my dad lost his parents, so he came over as an orphan, and my mom, her family immigrated to Illinois, but they were a broken family as well. So both families were really broken down. When they got married, they were pretty young. My mom was only 18 when she got married, and my dad was 21, so they had just barely made the cut. They didn't really know what they wanted to do with their lives. They didn't have me until about a year after they got married, but my dad was trying to complete college. My mom basically didn't go to college, and it was a deep struggle. So for the first 5-6 years of my life, we lived in a garage. My daughter is 6 years old now. I'm like, hey, where daddy is now is where we want to be, because it's a lot more rough when I was your age. But it's real different. I remember having just little toys, but it's always makeshift. You'd have like bits and pieces of a Lego piece or something else, and then you would just piece them together, and then that was your toy. It was not extravagant, but that really built me up into where we are today. Crap for my guys all the time, because I'll push them and push myself every single show or every single event or every single opportunity that comes our way. Take advantage of it. Be happy. Don't be afraid of the opportunities that come your way, because they come your way for a reason. Every opportunity that comes our way, we just open up more and more doorways, and we open up more time. Sometimes it feels like we don't have enough time in the day to actually do what we want to do, but if you figure out how to make it work, then we just keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when you first start out, to open a door, there's like a 500-pound blockade behind it. But then once you start going, and it's almost like downhill, you can just like open new doors with ease. Yeah. And so you see a door that's easier to open later in your journey, and you just don't trust it, because you're like, that last door, it took me a long time to open that up. So what should I do with this one? I 100% get that. And I try to do the same thing with my daughter as well. Because when I grew up, we didn't have anything either. We moved around a lot. I didn't really have very much. And my daughter's only 12, and she's been to like 12 states and 3 countries, and it's crazy. And I'm just like, hey, you need to appreciate this, because, and it's hard to tell that story because they don't know, because they're just living there. But it's like,
yeah,
I want you to understand, like, this is special for you. Everybody doesn't get something like this. So 2010s, most people now dream of owning a WOTC box. What made you go all in during 2011 when no one else really was?
It really came down to just me making really poor decisions because I wanted it. During that time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Exploded, and there were tons of people playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All my friends were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I played a little bit with them as well, but just Something about Pokemon. When I was a kid, that's something that was always out of reach for me. I would hear stories of people saying, hey, their birthday parties, their parents got them a box or something, and then all the kids opened a booster box at birthday parties. And I was like, I never actually got to experience that, but maybe one day when I have kids, it'll be worth doing. So that's how it started. Me and my wife, I'd started dating my wife like a little bit after I had already gotten into buying boxes. But it really just started because I was a dumb college kid with a bunch of money now. It's not going to hurt anybody, and it's not going to hurt me if I just buy a box. In Minnesota, there used to be this shop called Land World in Maplewood, and we would go there all the time for tournaments, but they had boxes. The owners of the original store used to have boxes all the time, so I still remember the first base set booster box I ever bought. I bought it for $400. I still have the box, so I brought it here just to share.
Oh, nice.
But I have the box, and I have the original receipt. It was ridiculous to me at the time, because I'm going to spend $400 on this box right now, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
What did your wife think about all of the boxes and all that stuff back then? Did she, because you said that you were already buying them and stuff when you met her, what did she think?
She knew I was a nerd
Either.
already. So she knew what she was getting into when she got involved with me.
Yeah.
But she knew I was a nerd. I liked Pokemon, anime stuff, Harry Potter, Star Wars, a big Trekkie. So my wife knew she was getting involved with, but she didn't understand how much Pokemon I had been buying for the longest time. It was bad enough to where I had started getting bank vaults in the early I'd say like 2012 to 2013 is when I opened my first bank vault, because I didn't feel safe with the amount of boxes that I had.
You're talking about a deposit box?
Because at the time, in hindsight, I should have bought a gun case, but I didn't do that. I was like, what happens if someone breaks into the house, or what happens if the house burns down? So what I did instead was I contacted Wells Fargo, and they opened up this big locker for me, and then I started depositing boxes there, and then that first locker maxed out, and then I had to get a second locker and then a third locker, and then the fourth locker that I opened up didn't fit the case that I bought. So I had bought a base set, a booster box case, sealed, and I won that from a eBay auction.
Really?
In 2014. I had paid like $2,700 for it. And at the time, it was stupid. It was stupid because you could buy a case for under $2,000 at the time. I didn't know anybody who was selling Pokemon cases back then for $2,000. So I just paid whatever eBay told me.
Yeah.
So I bought a sealed case of base set booster boxes, and it didn't fit the locker. So they sent me to a specialist. They specialized in commodities and lockers to insure high value items. And that's where the story goes with that. Then I just started depositing things over and over again for the next 3 years before I gave up in 2015.
That's one of the most financially reckless decisions at the time that pays off huge at the end.
Yeah,
it's crazy. At the time you think, oh, this is so terrible. What's going to happen? Like, I don't even have this money. And then you look at it now, and it shaped a portion of your life plan now. It's crazy to see that.
Yeah.
So
Do you
you
still
have,
have the case, or did you sell that?
I ended up breaking apart the case, and 2022 is when I started to reveal some of the collections that I had. I had started selling a bunch of the boxes to the community, and a lot of people at the time didn't really recognize where all this inventory was coming from, which was nice because I always stayed under the radar. My guys know that I like to stay really private with the amount of product that we have. Even telling people that I have lockers at bank vaults, I tell them we have product, but I don't actually tell them how much product we have or how many lockers we have. But we'd sold enough to where I had to break one of the cases just to authenticate. So that was my first interaction with Heritage Auctions, where I had met up with them. We opened up the case, and then we sold 2 of them on Heritage.
so you open up 2 boxes. You got 4 left. What year was that?
This was 2022.
So that was just recently. You said you bought these in 2014, right?
Yeah, 2014.
So 2014 to 2020, you're in college. Do you remember any time of wanting to open or holding yourself back from opening, or you were just always a sealed collector?
I had already known that you could weigh the packs back then. Instead of opening my own boxes, my wife came up with the best thing ever. And she was like, if you ever want to open your boxes, 1, just go buy a heavy pack, because heavy packs at the time are only $100. You could buy a heavy base set booster pack for $100 to $150, and that was still considered extremely high at the time. So I was paying basically pennies compared to today's market just to open a few packs.
Take me back to that.
The only sets that I actually enjoyed opening were Expedition, Legendary Collection, and Base. That was it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now it's what, $5,000 to open a pack from each?
Yeah. I can't do that anymore. But yeah.
Crazy. So 2020, right before you're about to start selling some stuff, 2022, you start letting some of it go. What did your collection look like at that point? And do you have any regrets on what you sold or didn't sell?
Oh, man. Yes. Yes and yes. My collection at the time was all about legendary birds. So before I became a big Blastoise guy, most people knew me in the community, especially in Minnesota. They knew that I collected legendary birds. So all I had was like Lugia, Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos. And I had massive collections of them. One of my grail pieces that I wish I would have never gotten rid of was an uncut sheet of Wizards of the Coast, the legendary bird promos. So it's like Trus, cool. Zapdos, and Articuno. I had won an auction for an uncut sheet of those Wizards of the Coast promos, and I don't remember when. I just remember I won it, and I'd had it for a solid 5 years before I was like, hey, I think I want to unload it, and I had only sold it for $4,000. Wow. Now, still in contact with the owner. I usually stay pretty close friends and in contact with a lot of my clients. He has the uncut sheet, and for what I've been told, he's been offered as high as $20,000 for it. So that's one of the ones that hurts. It burns, but
I was going to say, you see the base set uncut sheets more typically.
Yeah.
I think those are like 10,000 right now, and more rare with the birds promo. I've never even seen that in person, so that's crazy. What year did you graduate college?
That's the fun part. So everything goes full circle because I never completed college. My junior year of college, I got a job opportunity to go work for Medtronic as one of their like data analysts, and that jump-started my career into programming. It went nuts. Over the course of 8 years after that, I'd just basically gotten grandfathered onto new companies. We'd had a couple bidding wars with the U.S. Treasury where we'd done such a good job on a consultant gig that they actually bought out my contract from Robert Half, and I ended up working for the U.S. Treasury for their automation and QA division for 2-3 years. So I worked privately with and without Robert Half for about 2 years before I ended up where I am now.
What year was that? What year did you start your career?
I started 2015, the year that me and my wife got married, and by 2013, so yeah, about 2 years into our marriage, that's when my career took off, and I was like, hey, I'm going to make this decision. I know I should probably finish, but I'm not going to, and I'm just going to work full time. I think this will be better for us as well, so that we're not constantly worrying about finances, not constantly worrying about how we're going to make it. Right. And yeah, my wife was extremely supportive of it.
That's awesome. So the better part of the 2010s, you're just buying boxes, storing them, buying boxes, storing them. And then the COVID happened. Everything's just boomed. What went through your mind when you realized that Pokemon was on the rise and could beat returns of like other investment strategies you had, like stocks or crypto?
There was this really big turning point. The week of the government shutdowns for COVID, we watched the entire stock market tank. Like I watched my 401k basically go half. All the money that I had thrown into stocks, and these were like blue chips. These weren't just penny stocks. These were things that I had invested heavily into. I watched them basically go from 100 to 50 over the course of 4 days. And I was just so in shock with, if stocks crash, you don't have anything tangible. You don't have anything at all. But my Pokemon, if everything crashes, my Pokemon stayed the same. Nothing happened to that. If I had gold, gold stayed the same. If anything, gold went up in value. So I had this big light bulb moment where I was like, hey, as crypto is starting to recover I'm going to take everything that I had out of crypto, which at the time, it wasn't anything substantial. It was only like 5,000. I had gone from like 12,000 to 5,000 overnight, and that had just destroyed me. So I had taken whatever remains I had in there, and I had just thrown it straight into Pokemon, which was also really dumb because at the hype of COVID was Vivid Voltage, Champions Path, Hidden Fates. Right. So I spent so much money on Champions Path, it was ridiculous. I went out and bought so many boxes of Champions Path just as an investment, hoping that it would do good, and then it just fizzled out and it stayed stale. I didn't lose money on it, but I didn't gain anything either, so...
If only you would have picked Hidden Fates, right?
I know.
I think
it was
Champions
dumb.
Path has to be the worst performing set with a Charizard in it.
We had 2 Charizards, and it did not perform. Like, it was ridiculous to me. But yeah, right after that, I took the money out of that, sold all my Champions Path, and then I started going back into my vintage heritage, buying packs here and there, a little more around the place. I had noticed that like PSA 10s, graded cards were starting to get really popular in the market. People were paying absurd premiums at the time, and I wasn't into the graded scene at all. So I didn't even get into graded cards until like last year. For the longest time, it was just packs. But I had gone back in, taken a bunch of money, thrown them into packs, and then packs seemed to work. Vintage seemed to work. So I said, all right, three times was the charm. So if I failed here on these 2 other ventures, and this one works, and I'm going to keep going here. And here we are today.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you started selling the Pokemon, been in the corporate world for a few years, then did that mindset or culture of that environment help you starting a Pokemon business, or was it all just new to you and you had to figure it out as you went?
So here's another fun thing. When I first started, I wasn't BoomerTCG. When I first started, I was Boomer's Poke Cave, and I actually got sued.
Really?
Because one of the boxes that we had sold was fake.
Oh.
And it got opened up on somebody's YouTube stream. I'm not allowed to talk about who it was.
Yeah.
Because we signed an NDA with everything.
Huh.
But what happened was we sold them a box. It turned out it was fake. So we refunded all their money. We gave everything back to them. And then the refund of everything actually made it worse, where we ended up paying almost double back in fees and complaints and like issues, because they were dealing with a bunch of social media hate at the time. So we had to pay repercussions and stuff. So that absolutely destroyed like the very first business that I ever started. It only went on for about 4 months. So
in the beginning.
Yeah, at the very beginning, it was like the first 4 months, everything was going good, and then bam, first lawsuit, first everything got taken care of and squared away super, super easy. It was just like, yeah, you can't operate underneath the name of Boomer's Poke Cave anymore. You can't operate underneath these. And if you're selling any of these, they have to be authenticated. And I'm like, they were authenticated, and we didn't have to really deal with any other legal fees other than just the repercussions of helping out the client, making sure that they felt safe and that they were secure afterwards.
Right.
But yeah, that was like the worst thing that could ever happen early on in a business startup. Was just like, no way did we just buy a box that we bought this box, we sold this box, and we just did not know enough about it. But yeah, a big learning lesson.
If you would have got that box now, would you know it was fake?
Yeah, okay. I would know now.
Some fakes are really good. Obviously, Logan Paul bought that case that was sealed. Was it just a box or a case?
It was a whole case.
It was a sealed case. So Logan Paul bought that sealed case, and that was authenticated by a huge authenticator in the industry, and still ended up being fake. So they make some pretty good fakes. I would almost be interested to see what the company who broke that box did, because we've had fake boxes, and when we open them up, I just take care of it right on the spot, and I've never had any repercussions or blowback from my community because they trust that I'm going to make it right, even if something like that would slip by. So I guess back then breaking was newer as well, so no one had seen it as much. So I'm sure that was another thing there, but that's interesting. People always
When
talk
break-
about the
breaks back then were different too, right? Before, a lot of people would sell the whole thing, right, and then
Yeah.
open up all the packs and everything after, almost like, just like a show.
The people who had been doing the break, I'm allowed to say where they were doing it. So they were doing Facebook rips.
Okay.
So it was just like Facebook Live.
Which was
Uh-huh.
pretty much everything back
Yeah,
then.
and it was
Yeah.
everything. We didn't have any platforms or anything at the
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it had destroyed their credibility in the community, and it,
Sucked.
yeah,
That is
like after
terrible.
that, they're still pretty relevant, and yeah, they're still relevant in the community. I still see them at Collecticon and everything, and we shake hands. We're good friends still today. It's just it was one of those things where it was like I'm also a man of my word. If I tell you it's real, I'm going to help make sure that I take care of you and I take care of any of the issues that you have with your clients by the end. A lot of the money that went out afterwards was to help them fix the retaliation issues that they were dealing with their client base.
So did that set you back for a while? Were you like, whoa, I got to slow down a little bit? Or did you kind of transition and keep it going at that point?
Luckily, I was able to transition like pretty easy. Besides selling to them, one of the first people that I ever sold to was from Jack over at Loose Packs. I had sold them a first edition Jungle, Fossil, and Rocket. And at the time, those three boxes only came out to 28,000. Today, Rocket is 20,000 by or 26 to 28,000 by itself, which is nuts to me. But yeah, I had sold them those three boxes, and we had used that 28,000 as seed money for one of the first real estate purchases in my early real estate career. We had bought a duplex, and we basically turned the duplex into just a livable situation from what it was before. And that started to, after about 4 months, we started to turn some cash flow out of it. And then I redone the same thing again by selling another 2-3 boxes. And oh no, this second time I sold to Jack, I sold a bunch of packs. Like I had sold him like a little over 80 packs of like Rocket, Jungle, Fossil, Base, a bunch of everything. But that next 30,000 was seeded into another building, which eventually became an apartment. And that apartment just set the bar for everything else.
Nice. Sell a box, buy a house. Sell a box, buy a house.
That's, yeah, that's basically what happened.
That's awesome. That's obviously, it started to look a little better there, right? When you first were deciding to pivot fully into Pokemon, like full force, was there ever any pressure from your family or friends on making that decision?
So one thing is about like my friendship circle. I keep my friendship circle very tight knit. I have a lot of acquaintances. I have a lot of friends, but my close friends, my inner circle is only maybe 5 or 6 people. And the only advice that ever matters to me is from those 5 or 6 people. Regardless of what my family was saying, regardless of what my friends were saying, as long as my inner circle what said something, like their opinion is what mattered to me the most. And that's really shaped where we are today. It's been so pivotal to our BST collectors now. It's definitely been instrumental to all of that.
Yeah. And I think advice is even from your closest friend. What I always say is people always have advice for everything, no matter what the topic they're going, or not even advice, but an opinion on something.
Right.
So, no matter what, whether they have experience in the field or not, they're going to give you their opinion on it. And it's like, I always look at what experience in that field do they have? Because when I was getting into real estate, my grandma, she's, oh, it's such a terrible idea. Don't do it. This and this. And she just kept going off. And I was like, okay, I listened to what she had to say. But then I'm like, you've also rented your entire life. You are on Section 8 your entire life. What do you know about renting houses? So I just always, okay, yeah, tell me what you think, but relate it back to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Because although I do take the opinions of my friends and family seriously, I also look to people that are experts in a space to provide advice as well, because sometimes you can't get the best from people who don't know. But if in your circle you had a bunch of people that are knowledgeable or supportive of trying new things, that's the biggest thing. People don't ever like to try new things. So if you get into something new, it's, I don't know, we could keep doing what we're already doing. It's a little bit easier. So finding those people that want to push the boundaries and raise the bar and raise the ceiling every time, those are definitely the people you want to keep around in that close circle there. BoomerTCG started after, what was the other one?
Boomer's Poke Cave.
BoomerTCG started after Boomer's Poke Cave. When that started, how'd you come up with the name, and what sets it apart today from other sellers in the space?
For the longest time, I was also playing video games all the time. I still play video games regularly, but just not as active as I used to. But I used to play League of Legends and like different FPS games, Call of Duty. Halo was super active at one point, but all my friends would call me Boomer, or a lot of the younger guys would call me a Boomer because my reaction speed to stuff in the games were just so bad.
Sounds familiar.
That everybody's, he's on your left, he's on your left. And then I would turn, they're like, you freaking Boomer, he's on your left, he's right there. But I ended up getting this nickname from all the boys at church. And they were just like, yeah, you're like 25, but your reaction speed is like a 50-year-old, dude. So I took that and I was like, all right, I'm not going to make it as negative. I'm going to make it, if I'm going to focus on vintage stuff anyway, then I'm going to make it Boomer, because only boomers are going to understand like all the vintage stuff. They're going to look at the inventory and they're going to know what we have.
Nice. That's awesome. So what year was it that you started BoomerTCG then?
BoomerTCG would have been maybe 2023. Yeah.
2023.
Officially January of 2023.
So BoomerTCG starts in 2023. Over the last couple of years, how has that business transformed? And then tell us a little bit about BST Collectors as well.
For the longest time, I was doing things solo by myself. I knew a lot of people in the community. I knew a lot of people vending, doing shows, but I was just running it solo. I had already had enough clients that I didn't really pay attention to trying to work out where I needed to go and what spaces I need to be in. But once my clients started to dwindle down, I realized how hard it was to actually find clients who could pay the vintage prices on product. Most modern, especially during like COVID when money was pretty scarce, and even now with the whole economic situation, most people don't have $500 to spend on a single pack on a chance, just a gamble that you're going to pull a Charizard. If you don't pull the Charizard out of a base set booster packs, you basically lose your money. You could break even with a Blastoise, but you got to hope that you at least get a 9. So I had started talking with a couple of my friends, Jonathan and Kevin and Tudor, the 3 main guys in my group. I call us the 4 horsemen. No matter who we bring into BST Collectors, we will always govern everything, because we've run the group for almost 2 years now. Extremely solid, extremely proficient in what we do. We've been very good about not stepping on toes, but also keeping a community that's just very welcoming for new vendors and old vendors, along with just the community of collectors. Our ideology is always the same. You should always be keeping the community positive, being consistent, and be a consistent and reliable resource to the community. And then of everything else, you should be bringing the joy of Pokemon to the next generation. So kids, if there's kids at shows and is off by a little bit, just give it to them, because that's a memory. Create core memories for the next generation. We have those 3 core beliefs in the group. We can make money, but you have to plant that seed of those core memories into the next generation of kids. Otherwise, the hobby dies in 10 years. It's not going to be the same way that we have it now.
And honestly, a little gift goes a long way. There's one instance that I remember where a kid came into the store. He got to buy a couple packs, and he's like, it's my birthday, and he comes in to buy a couple packs, and his mom's like, all of his birthday money, he just wanted to come here and spend it all. And that's awesome. And so he picks out his packs and he grabs a couple things, and I'm like, here's 2 packs on me, happy birthday. And the kids' excitement was to the ceiling. It was crazy. Little things like that will create memories for collectors, and then 20 years from now, then they'll be like, oh, it was so cool, I collected back when I was a kid. And I think another thing to like the younger generation collectors now, growing up with parents that collected when they were kids, cool, because you can collect with your kids. Like you have that where you can collect. When we were kids, our parents didn't collect. At least they collected, but they didn't collect Pokemon. So that was like a new thing. So I see that still to this day. Parents will come in with their kids and give them like 4 minutes in the store and then be like, okay, we got to go. It's just give them a little bit of time. Let them look around. You know what I mean? Jeez. So you got a lot going on, man. You got your full-time software engineer, real estate, you do some community work and Pokemon, and you do a lot of Pokemon shows. How do you manage doing everything?
This will be the biggest shout out to my wife. Without my wife, I would not be able to do any of this. So I have 4 kids and everybody thinks I'm crazy because I'm like, yeah, I definitely am crazy because I took a gamble when we had 3 kids and I was like, you know what? I have 2 girls and 1 boy. I got a 50-50 chance at getting another boy. And I lost that coin flip. I have 3 beautiful girls and an amazing son. And I've told everybody now, yeah, I'm done. But in the back of my brain, I grew up with a brother and I just don't know what I would do without my little brother. So maybe it's in the cards in the future, but I don't know if I really want to have 5 kids.
5 just sounds like so much.
Trying to balance everything. Without my wife, I would never be able to do this. From day one of just getting married, she's been extremely supportive of everything I do. What I did for her for 2024, I guess 2025 is the official date of it now, but I officially retired my wife and told her, like, just be a stay-at-home mom now. With Pokemon exploding the way it does and where we are financially right now, it would make more sense and it would be better for us to just have you stay home with the kids and let me handle all of our finances. And if you trust me with this, then I promise you, you won't see me at the casino spending like $5,000 just because. Every time I spend money, it will be because I'm thinking about you guys. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to take care of your future. If there was anything to happen to me, you would be secured. So that's the goal for everything. My wife gets it. I've never had to fight her about it. I've never had to be like, you need to spend more time with us and the kids. Every time I come back home, how was the trip? I'm glad everything went well. Take a break, enjoy your time with the kids. And in a week and a half from now, when you leave, just bring back something cool for the kids or make sure you're taking photos. So that's how it is. Now my kids have like these gizmo watches, so they're constantly texting me or sending me videos all the time. So now it's a little more annoying because beforehand I didn't see you guys. And now I get spammed by my daughter while she's in school. She's, hi, Dad, I'm in class. And then the second message is, Dad, I can't message you because I just got in trouble for using my watch. I'm like, yeah, so don't message me.
Cool, talk to you in an hour. Thanks.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's literally just my wife. She handles all the scheduling and everything for me.
Cool to have somebody that has your back and really helps to build you up and understands it.
Yeah.
I know I've seen a lot of people with, I would say, like the aspirations to do something, but then are limited by a partner that's not very supportive of them. And that can really just crush a lot of things.
What was your guys' story? I love hearing how everybody got started too. Everybody's story is always so unique. There was a guy, one of my closest friends, he's in Kansas, but he ended up opening up a card shop and then the card shop got robbed, but the insurance payout on that was good that he closed his shop and now he does everything online. Like all they do is just online based and they make more money selling Pokemon online than they ever did in the store. So like stories like that, it's like super unique. Everybody always has a different story.
Always been around Pokemon off and on. As a kid, I loved it. Base set, jungle, fossil. And then it was too cool for Pokemon for many years. I played the games, stuff like that. And then came back during XY and just ripped packs for fun. I was just like playing XY on Game Boy Advance on my commute. I used to live in San Jose and commute to San Francisco every day for work. So I was just playing XY on the train up there, and then I was like, I gotta rip some packs or something. I gotta get some stuff, and got back into that, and then just fizzled out because I had nobody to do it with really. And then COVID hit. I started streaming Call of Duty. That kind of turned into me creating content full time, and eventually I found my way back to Pokemon, and just the natural way of things brought me to starting to stream and doing rip and ships and stuff.
Yeah, I actually didn't open Pokemon when I was a kid. My dad collected sports cards, but it was always a him thing. It was never a us thing, right? So I was never included with that. He would collect it and keep it in the drawer, and I wasn't allowed to touch it or look at it or anything. So when I was a kid, I collected toys, superhero toys like Turtles, Ghostbusters. Those are my favorite like franchises. And then I want to say it was like 2018, and my buddy was telling me, oh, I'm getting back into sports cards. It's picking up a little bit. It's getting more popular, and you should check it out. And then I remember I saw on Gary V's Snapchat, he just had a stack this high of like PSA cards. This right here, and he's just like showing it's the same card, and this is the one you want to buy. He didn't really show it, and so I screenshot it and zoomed in on it to see what it was, and it was a Luka Doncic rookie card. And so I went on eBay, and I bought 3 of them, PSA 10 for $150 total, so $50 a piece. And there was the silver ones, but they wanted like $200, and I'm like, whoa, come on now, $200. So I just put them in the closet. And then 2020, COVID hits, things are going crazy, and we're just talking, and my buddy's like, it's been so crazy in the cards, this and that, like it's going just bananas, everything's so wild, it's like way up. And he's like, these rook cards, all this stuff, and you bought some of those, didn't you? And I looked, I went on, and they were then selling for $700 a piece. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I looked at the silvers, and they were selling for $6,000 a piece. And I'm like, oh man, I should have spent $200. $1,000 would have gave me 30 grand. Come on. So then we started finding more drops and like picking up cards and buying more sealed. Way too much. If we would have kept some of that stuff sealed, it would have been a lot better for us. But sports were so hard to find that we just started ripping Pokemon. And it was at that same time that you're talking about where you got back in and started investing into Pokemon. So it was a lot of Champions Path and Hidden Fates and Vivid Voltage. And I remember at that time, which were selling ridiculously crazy. Like even the V cards out of those set and a PSA 10 were like $80.
Yeah.
I sent in 300 cards to PSA, and we didn't get them back until 2023. So it was 2.5 years that it took PSA to finish our grading order. And by the time we got them back, a lot of those cards were only worth like $8, $10. So we lost a ton on that, but just starting during that time, it was really cool. It got me back into it, and I built up a surplus of inventory. And I would stream games and stuff on Facebook at the time. Stuff that's taboo now, but back then it was what everybody was doing. So I started doing that, and then I was going to start a repack. This was before repacks really took off. So that's actually where I came up with the name Cardboard Vault, was from that. And then I'm like, it's a pretty cool name actually for a store. And so instead we transitioned to it and opening a store instead of doing the repack. And now that was August of 2021. We'll be coming up here on our 4-year anniversary. The time flies. It's been a crazy ride, and it just keeps getting better and better every year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to see what the next 10 years brings. Speaking of the next 10 years, where do you think the Pokemon market is going in the next 5 to 10 years, especially vintage?
Oh, man. My honest opinion is that I don't know. I'm lost. So boxes that I sold in December of 2024 have almost doubled in price
so
this
we're talking
year.
6 months ago.
Yeah, 6 months ago. It's ridiculous. In December, I sold a base set booster box, and I had sold it for $14,000. Now, base set booster boxes are going for about $23,000 to $25,000, depending if it's a blue wing or a green wing. Eric over at Goldenrod is a really good friend of mine. One of the first boxes that I ever sold him was a first edition Rocket box, and I sold that to him last year in Chicago, and I'd sold it to him for $14,000. That box now is like $28,000 or something. The amount of money flooding the Pokemon vintage market right now is insane, and even with the numbers going as high as they are, you would think that with prices being so high that it would mean there's less buyers, because now the demographic of people who can actually afford it has now gotten even slimmer. But that doesn't actually seem to be the case.
There's more.
Yeah,
Right,
all of a sudden there's more. I was speaking with one of our private clients that we consign with, and he's not even into Pokemon. He's a crypto whale. He made a couple $1 million off of crypto over the course of 2 years. And instead of him keeping his money in crypto, what him and a bunch of other whales have started to do is throwing their money into something tangible. Basically the same concept that I had come up with during COVID. So what they were doing was, like, they don't care if a base set booster box is 25,000. They just want to park their money so that it's safe, because when the next crypto crash happens, they don't want to be stuck with nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, vintage has not made any sense to me market wise. It's nice because we have a lot of vintage and we have a lot of product. So our inventory is worth a lot more, but it's also a lot harder for us to scale and figure out what we be buying our clients out at, what percentage should we be paying. We've gotten as high as paying 95% on boxes. And most people will think that we're crazy, but recently I paid $22,000 on a base set booster box just so that I could sell it for 24, and my margin seems very low, but if I could flip it fast, then it's worth it. But yeah, like long term, in the next 10 years, vintage will still hold its value and it will still be extremely valuable. But if it continues to move up the way that it does, just pretend that you double it right now, and in 10 years, do we think our kids are going to be able to afford something worth $50,000 for a base set booster box? Because I know a handful of people who can pay $50,000 for a box right now. Do we think the average everyday collector is going to be able to even buy a single pack in 10 years?
And then do the singles continue to rise with it, right? Like, do those support? That's one thing that for a while, the singles weren't reflecting the box price. Like, the box prices were soaring, the pack prices were soaring, and then the PSA 10s and stuff like that of the hits of the set were like still staying the same. So it's like boxes were doubling, all this stuff, and you're in it at all this more money, but you still have the same out of it. Now it's kind of changed. A lot of those cards have like finally been like, oh, this card used to be $10,000, it's now like $30,000.
Yeah.
It's crazy how singles and sealed are two completely separate markets and they don't move at the same time.
Yeah.
It's
wild.
Actually, sometimes singles will take off and then you'll look at the pack price and be like, that's going to catch up. We need to buy a ton of packs of that, because I think Evolving Skies last year, we were buying it for $10 a pack.
Yeah. Or even like Fusion Strike. Like Fusion Strike, that Gengar was like $1,000.
Oh man, yeah.
But those packs were still only $450. And it was like,
and they were
that's
everywhere.
a no-brainer.
If there's a hit worth over $1,000 in a 10, the pack price is going to go up, and it's just for whatever reason that's delayed. But then the same thing, the packs, like some packs don't make sense. Like to me, Evolutions doesn't make sense. I think people like to rip that set for nostalgia over,
so.
But the box price doesn't match the output of the hits that you can get out of that set. So will they one day catch up? There's some of the bigger Charizards. I don't know. Same thing with like Vivid Voltage, which really hasn't went way up, but it's basically Pikachu or bust in the entire set. So it's sets like that, when the box prices go up and they match the rest of the market, but there's no cards on the other side, what's going to come down or what's going to go up? Are the singles going to go up? Or is the box going to come back down? You never know. I think it's going to be interesting to see vintage boxes 10 years from now with the current state of the market. 5 years ago, how many vintage boxes do you think were being ripped a week across all platforms, which was not as many? You're maybe seeing 5 to 10 boxes, and it's like now with every different platform, I bet you're seeing 50 to 75 boxes broken a week across all streamers. And
Oh, yeah.
So 75 a week, and that could be like a conservative number.
Stock's going to run out at some point.
Like, that's thousands of boxes. So 10 years from now, if it keeps like this, if it keeps getting more popular and it's even more boxes, that stuff kind of gets a little more scarce. And when something becomes more scarce, the price rises quite a bit. So it'll be really interesting to see that progression and that scale of that, how fast it rises up. But I definitely think it'll price some people out, and then all of a sudden someone will have a first edition, and that's going to be just unreal. What is the biggest misconception that you think people have about making money in Pokemon?
Oh man, the funniest one to me is that we're like money laundering.
I've been seeing that one a lot recently. Somebody who has a lot of reach must have said something, because it's like, I see it in every comment section right now.
Everybody's like, Pokemon is used to launder money, just like the arts world. Like, you really think this picture that somebody painted with 4 lines is worth $50,000? I'm like, I guess I understand what you guys are saying about it, but I know plenty of collectors that just have money and they just want to buy. But I do know people who have done stuff like that, shady stuff, where it's like they wanted to take their money and park it into something else without anybody knowing where that money came from. And I'm like, dude, that's super sketchy. I don't know if I could help you with that because I don't want to be tied to the cash. So like the biggest misconception that I've ever had from my own family is I've had my family sit me down and they were like, Shalom, 2 years ago, you were struggling with like your car payments. 2 years ago, you were struggling with not being able to figure out if you wanted to have 2 cars or not. How come all of a sudden you're posting up photos of you buying a Japanese base set booster box for 30 grand? I promise you, it sounds funny, but I'm just selling Pokemon and
cards.
My connections with Pokemon had little by little over time has just made its way to this now. And it's not like Pokemon is the only way that I'm making money. So you have to explain that with them, go through a bunch of stuff, and then there's the head scratch moment when they're like, no, we don't believe you.
Yeah. And that's just another one of the things that we talked about earlier. If you take back to opening doors gets easier. So if they were never able to open that first door that weighed 500 pounds, there's no way. You can't, because stuff like that doesn't happen. It just doesn't work that easy. But you're like,
Yeah.
Really it does. You just have to get to that point where you can just walk up and open the door. It's kind of interesting because I think anytime there's stuff that has value or there's a lot of money in something, you're going to find people who take advantage of it, who cheat the system, they scam it to try and do something better for themselves. You're going to always have that with anything that has value. But the majority of the people that we see week in and week out at all the shows across the country, setting up, online selling, 99% of them are good people. Of course, you're just going to have a few bad eggs in any basket that you have. But for the most part, everybody's on the up and up. It's just crazy how much money is in Pokemon and into the collecting of Pokemon, sealed or singles. And what you want to collect, it just depends because everybody has a little something different. Sealed collectors or a certain Pokemon. You say you're collecting Blastoise, that's the new favorite Pokemon. What's your favorite Blastoise card that you own?
I'm just all OG, so it's going to be the first edition Shadowless Blastoise. I've got
Pretty fire.
a PSA
It is a
10
cool card.
of that, the Shadowless, and then the Unlimited. And I've been trying to find a PSA 10 of the 4th print UK edition, but that one just never shows up on the market. So whenever that one comes up, I'll add that one too. But yeah, it'll just always be base set for me.
I don't remember where we were. Someone just had a 4th edition base set box, and we were talking about how rare it is even to see the box, like a 4th edition box.
The box itself is ridiculously hard to find.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone from a similar background who wants to break into the space, not just as a collector, but maybe as a business owner?
Ooh, I'm going to give the same advice that I give to my Elite Four members. Buy a box that you believe in, that it's undervalued, or that it's your favorite set. Buy that box and then use that as your safety net first. Get to a point where you can buy that box and then never sell that box. Use that as your safety net. If anything bad ever happens, you have that box that you can fall back on and sell it if you need to, but use that as your cushion. Most people will create a savings account, but if they're anything like me, where they like to spend when they see a good deal, that savings account is not safe. Our savings account, that's probably like the one time that my wife actually got mad, is I started using our savings to buy Pokemon. So I'm like, oh, it's a good deal. Like, I'm only paying 60% or 70%. And she's like, it doesn't change the fact that's our savings account. But if you turn that money into a box, you won't spend it. You'll forget about it. You'll just put it away, put it in a locker, and then it'll appreciate in value over time. It's going to do the same thing that a savings account is going to do for you anyway. Appreciate in value over time. And then once you have that secured, do it again. If you could do it one time, do it again. If you have to grind a little harder to do it again, do it so that you don't have to worry about the 3rd time or the 4th time or the 5th time. this whole thing about our hobby is being able to buy and sell consistently and doing it repetitively over and over again. If you get tired of doing that, then the hobby as a vendor, it will not work for you. But one thing that we've done to secure the financial aspects of my family is, instead of creating like a fund for my daughters for college, I convinced my wife to let me buy them a base set booster box last year. So each of my kids own a base set booster box, and when they turn 18, they will have the option of selling the box so that they can fund college or their life, or they can keep the box and just rely on scholarships and stuff for college. But basically, that's my inheritance to them. I feel like instead of giving them a bunch of cash, I'm going to give them something that's a little harder for them to get rid of. One, it's going to be sentimental for them when they look at the box, or two, it's going to be worth more than what I could give them now.
Now to that.
Fire.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think the key to that, though, is putting it in the security deposit box. Because if I had a box sitting here every day, well, I don't know. There might be some cool cards in there. They could just rip this open. So you put it in a security deposit box. You usually have those decisions at night, and the bank's closed at night, so you don't got to worry about trying to get that out of there. And
Oh, yeah. No,
that's
it's
gotta
so
help
much
a little
safer.
bit. Yeah, 100%.
All right, a little rapid fire. We're just gonna go boom. Favorite Pokemon of all time?
Blastoise.
Blastoise. Big man Blastoise.
Yeah.
What is one card that you will never sell no matter what?
The first edition Shadowless Blastoise PSA 10.
Awesome. Sealed or singles, what's in your stash more?
Singles, actually. As much as we have in sealed product, I have a massive amount of Blastoise singles that go into a binder. So, yeah, those just end up in a deposit box.
What's a card that you regret selling the most?
I have a lot of regrets on a lot of stuff I've sold. The most recent one will probably be our PSA 9 Gold Star Rayquaza. I sold it in February when it was only worth like $16,000, and then 2 weeks ago it sold like $25K. Yeah, that broke my heart.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Only 16,000 is still crazy, though. That's pretty solid still.
What's the most slept on modern set?
Ooh, my favorite modern set right now, Pokemon Go and Celebrations, because I love the Blastoises that come out of there. It's just a really cool full body artwork. It's not the whole full art like card, but you get the full Pokemon itself. I absolutely love those sets. I'm so glad that the price on them is still relatively low, so I can just buy as much as I want.
I feel that. I actually like Pokemon Go too. I think that Mewtwo card, the alt, is super nostalgic to me.
You're talking about the Radiant Blastoise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing is actually so sick.
It is
looking
sick.
out of Pokemon Go, yeah.
At its low, it was like $2, so I
Yeah.
bought hundreds and hundreds of them. I've shared it on our Instagram Live, but I think we're sitting on a little over 800 Radiant Blastoises.
Wow.
That's like me with the Dittos out of that set. I think I have 200 or 300 because I was like, a sticker card is so unique. They've never done that before where you can peel it off. So I bought a ton of them when they were like $4 or $5 a piece. So.
Oh, yeah.
Fire. What's a grail card that you're still chasing?
The one grail that if I ever got it, or if I ever had the chance of buying it reasonably, it's the Aquapolis Lugia, the Crystal Lugia. If I could ever get that in a 10 and convince my wife that it's a good investment long term without dipping into any funds, I would absolutely love to own that.
Awesome. Pokemon gave you your own trainer card. What would your ability be?
Oh, man. Probably surf.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And then the last one is describe the hobby in one word.
Boomin'.
Bowman.
Boomin'.
Yeah. I love it. It is. And it is.
boom.
It is boom.
It is booming. It's been really good. He is growing. And so I just got back from a convention. It was the sports cards based. They talk about the amount of people collecting cards now is the amount of people that watch sports right now. And it would be the same thing with people who are playing the games like Pokemon or in the anime versus collecting the cards. And there's just a huge delta of more collectors that we can get into the space. So it's only going to get crazier. I think obviously in the 90s, Pokemon wasn't out yet till the end of the 90s, but sports cards, they just overprinted everything. and it all crashed out, and now none of that stuff has any value, whereas Pokemon doesn't offer any type of rarity other than harder to pull rates of the cards. But in sports, they've started to number stuff, more rare variations that there's not as many of, so you see the value go up on that. And I've seen other TCGs like Magic has started numbering cards, and it's just been crazy. Imagine a numbered card in Pokemon would just be historic. Like for the 30th year anniversary, if they did like 30th year and they did 5 cards numbered to 30,
Be insane.
it would go crazy. That would be the coolest grail chase. That would be so sick. All right, so we're going to do a little pack battle. You picked Burning Shadows.
If one of us gets the Zard right here, this is going to be so electric.
This will be electric. And we all have different pack art. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We don't do any of the pack tricks.
This would be cool.
Oh, there we go.
Which,
Just
I don't
go
even...
straight from the front and go to the...
Just straight from the front?
We'll just go to the reverse. Oh, he's already there. Oh, there we go.
3, 2,
Okay, there's the reverse.
All right.
And...
Oh.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
I continue to just get cooked.
There we go.
Hey, we take the full art's not bad.
That is sweet. Yeah.
There we go. Tapu Fini.
That's awesome.
Absolutely love these old GX full arts.
They're so
I just love the way that they're all textured.
Yeah,
And
same.
the centering of them is so hard with the black border, though.
Oh,
It really amplifies what you can see because it's such a small line that goes around. And if that thing's off even like a 16th of an inch, you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so off-centered.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. I think a lot of the tag teams and stuff right now are just booming.
I don't know if you saw that Ancient Origins Mega Rayquaza, like 3,500 in a 10 now.
In a 10.
is it
It
actually?
just like it just went crazy.
Jeez.
All those XY cards. XY like
Yeah.
kind of makes sense. It's so hard to grade.
All right. Appreciate you stopping by to answer some questions with us. It's been a really solid interview. We're going to make sure we post your Instagram link in the description of the video. Make sure you guys check them out. And if you're at any of the bigger TCG shows, there's a good chance you're going to see them there set up. Look for the big Boomer tablecloth. As always, Wash and I have our information in the description of the video as well. Make sure you check us out. Go check out one of Wash's epic streams. Been a little crazy lately
Kind of crazy.
with the break of that first edition box last weekend. That was a great time. So appreciate you coming in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.